The unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect truth is seldom met with, even in 100,000 myriad kalpas. Now we can see and hear it. We can remember and accept it. I vow to make the Buddha's truth one with myself. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha. Okay. Thank you all for being here today. So, this is a Dharma talk about aspiration and deepening our practice. In short, it's a talk about stepping up. And this is not a talk meant to make people feel badly, that somehow they're not doing enough in their practice. As you know, we primarily give these talks for ourselves with the hope that it might also benefit others. I wanted to give a talk where I explore what it means to deepen our practice, even if we're just beginning, and talk about some practical ways that we can step up. There's a call to training that resounds over and over, and it's up to us to answer the call when we hear it. In one way or another, we've all heard the call to training because it has brought us here, or it has brought you to the Shasta Abbey YouTube channel. Some things in life remind us of this call. When we hear about selfless acts, people helping others in perilous situations, something resonates in our hearts. The selfless giving of ourselves to benefit other beings. I remember last summer, I read in the news about a man who'd gone to the beach with his family, and he just happened to look out into the water, and he was at Lake Ontario, which is one of the Great Lakes. He sees a pair of flailing arms, and without a second thought, he swims out, and it turns out very dangerous conditions with a terrible tide. He's able to save this young girl, and as it happens, 3 other people who were also drowning at the same time. So 4 members of one family were drowning simultaneously. And this one person was able to save them all. And I thought, just a remarkable story, and really a remarkable person. It happened that this man was training to join the local fire department, so he happened to be, a good, strong swimmer, and just so fortunate. And when we hear stories like this, the selflessness and the bravery of this man, it tugs at something, the wish to help beings. I was quite taken with this story because first, it points to the innate goodness of people and our wish to help others. And second, because when you hear about such selflessness, it inspires us. It makes us want to do better in the mostly ordinary interactions we have with beings in everyday life. I think to myself, right, I can let go of those crabby thoughts that arise when mud gets tracked into the dining hall or whatever else it is, because in the grand scheme of things, this is just small potatoes in training. No matter where we are in our practice, whether we're just starting out or, we're a veteran, the opportunities to step up never cease. So I wanted to start by talking about meditation. And for anyone wanting to deepen their practice, taking an honest look at our meditation is really a good first step. If someone is new to the practice or newer, and new to meditation in particular, maybe struggling a little bit, I might ask them first if they've settled on one practice. Have they given this meditation a reasonable shot? Or do they like to skip around, keeping their eyes open some days? Maybe they're doing visualization or mantra practices on other days, because I think this is an important question. If we want to step up, if we want to deepen our practice, have we given the meditation in one tradition a decent shot? I once heard a monk address this question of multiple practices. I found it really helpful, and they used the analogy of drilling for water. If we try one practice, then another, and then another, we never get down into the dirt very far. We have to be willing to stick, with one meditation practice if we want to find water. And I think when we can find a practice that resonates and a meditation practice we can commit to, we begin to lay the groundwork. And every day that we practice this meditation, whether we think we're doing it or not, it strengthens that foundation layer by layer by layer. So if we can find one practice that really resonates with us and give it everything we have, even if we can only sit for a few minutes each day, it becomes a part of us, a part of our everyday life, and not something that we're just doing on weekends. Because when the practice and the meditation becomes a part of us, it becomes our foundation that we can lean on day in and day out. And I think this is a really important point here, is that if we do the groundwork, if we lay a firm foundation in meditation, we'll come to know that there's something that we can trust, that we can lean into time and again when things are tough. So continuing on with meditation, if we've been doing the practice for a while now and we're committed to one type of meditation, if we want to deepen our practice, I think we need to be honest with ourselves by looking at our meditation practice. Do we sit consistently? Do we sit every day, even if it's just for a few minutes? If we sit for 5 minutes, can we occasionally sit for 10 minutes? Or how about a short sitting in the morning and in the evening? I'm definitely not suggesting that we should be doing hours of meditation in the morning and the evening. Most people have a life and other commitments. But rather just to honestly look at our meditation and see if there's some room to grow, an opportunity to step up, because only we can make that assessment of ourselves. Another way that we can step up our training and deepen our meditation in everyday life is by actively bringing our meditation into our day-to-day activities. I think that there's so many untapped opportunities to bring our meditation into what we do. Because there's this simple joy that springs up when we fully do one thing at a time. And we keep bringing our mind back to that, when the mind wanders. And more these days, the tendency is to multitask. We cook dinner and listen to our favorite album. We go for a run with earbuds in. We might wash the dishes and stream something. We get in the car, we turn on the radio or some music. And I'm not saying we should never multitask, but if we only ever multitask in our day-to-day activities, we're missing an opportunity to bring our meditation into what we're doing. I think the question of how we can step up in our training can have so many facets. And one of the things that can be so difficult in training is this feeling that, we don't know anything, that we're not an authority on the practice, and so we question our meditation. We question our effort. Maybe even the strength of our aspiration for the way. So maybe we look in books, maybe many, many books, or we listen to Dharma talk after Dharma talk after Dharma talk, and the same day in search of some answer to our question. Or perhaps we simply don't share our experience of training during Dharma discussions, or find that we're unable to ask questions. I had the perfect example of this not knowing come up this week when I was working on the talk, when halfway through writing it, I was ready to throw it all out and begin again. So I thought, boy, this can come up all the time. So I remember when I was first starting out here as a lay resident before I was ordained, I was completely petrified to answer questions during Dharma discussions. even if I was, simply speaking from my own experience. Because a part of me was convinced that someone else knew better. In Dharma discussions, of course, it can be so easy to hold back. We're not on the spot. We might think, I'll let somebody else answer this. Or we might think our experience isn't relevant, or that we aren't particularly wise, or haven't been training for long enough to know, quote unquote. I think stepping up means that sometimes we have to own up to what we know. This can be deeply uncomfortable, but if we want to deepen our practice, we have to be willing sometimes to take a leap and own up to our own experiences. This doesn't, of course, mean bragging about spiritual experience, but being willing to share something, that happens in our training, our experience of training, sharing that when the moment arises. To benefit others with our training, sometimes we simply have to let go of the judgments that arise regarding the value of what we have to offer. During Dharma discussions, we can benefit many beings by being willing to ask a question, that we think is a simple question, or maybe we even think it's a stupid question, or by sharing our experience of training on a particular topic. And I think we just don't know how our question or comment can benefit others. So just consider that sometimes it is worth taking that leap of faith. I think that stepping up doesn't mean, on the other hand, that we're constantly striving to improve our practice. It also doesn't mean that, we have to go all out to achieve something, to get something, in order to realize enlightenment. I think Rev. Master Jiyu used to refer to this as storming heaven. Unknowingly, we may also have an idea that finding the truth means finding the right teacher, quote unquote, or receiving some esoteric teaching or instructions from another. This idea that we need something from another in order to be spiritually complete or whole. Stepping up or deepening our practice means that we must learn to respond from that place of innate fullness instead of a place of lack. It's trusting that fundamentally we have everything we need and doing the best we can to keep to the precepts to help beings as well as ourselves. This doesn't mean that we don't go for refuge to the Sangha, because this is a vital aspect of our practice, but rather we trust, what called us to the practice in the first place. We trust that we have the Buddha nature and that, we didn't miss out somehow. There's this lovely poem from the Denkoroku, the record of the transmission of light, from chapter 39 on Great Master Tozan Ryokai. The poem goes, "Truly I should not seek for the truth from others, for then it will be far from me. Now I am going alone. Everywhere I am able to meet him. He is me now. I am not him. When we understand this, we are instantaneously with the truth." Just to say that the use of the words, him and he in this poem could just as easily be thought of as Buddha nature or that which is, really any word that resonates with us here. So there's this kind of constant looking outside of ourselves that some of us experience at certain points in training. It's doubting we can meditate and looking to others for confirmation. It's not owning up to what we know. When our experience of training can be helpful, it can be, as I mentioned previously, listening to multiple Dharma talks a day, back to back. There's a kind of restlessness, a seeking, a constant searching that, never seems to be quelled. This is why Great Master Dogen says in the Rules for Meditation, "Why travel to other dusty countries, thus forsaking your own seat? If your first step is false, you will immediately stumble. Already you are in possession of the vital attributes of a human being. Do not waste time with this and that. You can possess the authority of Buddha. I think that, there's so much that we can get caught up in, so many detours that can lead us away from knowing that authority of Buddha that Dogen speaks of. And sometimes the detour that we get caught up in is simply doubting our ability to do the practice, thinking the practice is too hard, or thinking somehow that it's something out of our reach. Stepping up here is simply trusting over and over again that we have what we need, all the while just doing the day-to-day practice as best we can. It always comes back to the simple practice of meditation, keeping to the precepts. Speaking of the precepts, if we've been under the impression that taking or keeping the precepts is something that is out of our reach, I'd like to say from the perspective of someone who is constantly stumbling with the precepts and recommitting herself to them, that the precepts are for us too. And even if we think that, we're not at a point in our training where we can or should take the precepts, we can still have a practice that includes the precepts. In our tradition, we say that the precepts are the conduct of Buddhas. They show us how to create less suffering for ourselves and others. I like to think of them as compassion in action. So whether we're new to the keeping of precepts or we've taken them a long time ago, stepping up in our practice can be as simple as reading the precepts or reading about the precepts every week. It could be taking one precept that we're having difficulty with, keeping it in mind as best we can throughout the day. I think that there's so many ways that, we can make the Buddha's teachings a regular part of our day, and it really comes down to us. We can have temple rules, condo rules, traffic rules, codes of conduct in society, the 16 great precepts, the 48 less grave precepts, the wish simply to be kinder, nicer, etc. But in the end, as great master Tozan Ryokai's poem in the Denkoroku says, now I am going alone. It is up to us. Whether we wear our seatbelt when the highway patrol isn't around, or we nourish jealousy and hatred, even if we don't express it outwardly, or we foster those little irritations that arise on a daily basis, no one can do this work for us. When I was a novice monk, and I'd leave something where it shouldn't have been, a sign would appear, courtesy of the head novice, that read, "Please remove." And now that I no longer live in the meditation hall and I have a room, it's up to me whether I leave my socks all over the floor. And it sounds so simple, it's up to us. Of course it's up to us. I say this because stepping up means that, we have to put the work in ourselves and no one can do that for us. Nowadays, no one is there to pester me about my socks. And when it comes down to it, no one can meditate for us or ask the questions that really matter to us. Whether someone treats me with the utmost kindness or with disdain, I can't control what comes out of their mouth, but I can work on how I respond. The more we can deepen our practice and live in accord with that which is greater than ourselves, the less suffering we create for ourselves and for other beings. Whether we're just starting out in the practice or we've been at it for many years, there's always the opportunity to step up. There's always the opportunity to do the thing that our heart wants, but probably makes us feel a little bit uncomfortable. As the scripture of great wisdom says, "O Buddha, going on beyond, and always going on beyond, always becoming Buddha. Hail, hail, hail." Thank you very much.